You have been dealing with recruitment, placements, headhunting for most of your life with luxury companies like Apple, LVMH, Gucci. How are they supposed to find the right person?
There's never a good candidate. It is about finding the right candidate for the company. I never start talking about the salary or the title or the company. It's all about hooking the person up to a story. And if you're able to attract people to the story, half your job is done.
We'll start up here with a 27-year-old Arran.
Now with technology and AI, I don't think the job has changed. The skills required to do the job has changed.
Ichiro Malt, the Joker.
If you come out and tell me, I really want to be luxury, then my first thing I'll tell you is, okay, go work in the store for 6 months.
This is a relatively new release from the Glendronach called Ode to the Dark. How are you using AI in your company?
So if you're trying to hire 500 engineers and you post a job and you get 1,000 resumes, then AI can filter out those resumes and come up with the qualified, right? But if I'm looking for a CEO for a company, I can't use AI.
It's a 40-year-old Edrington blend.
Everything was about manufacturing. Now the younger generation is about AI. What's next?
Hopefully there'll still be whiskey we can drink. That's all I really care about. Hey guys, Rickesh here, the Whiskey Chief. Firstly, thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate it. If you could like and subscribe below, it really helps us bring the best whiskeys to you and keep doing this show the best we can. Thanks. Welcome to Whisky Unfinished, where the whiskey's never done and neither is the conversation. Today we have my good friend Gaurav More. We've known each other for too long, 26 years now, right?
Exactly.
And Gaurav is been in the recruitment, headhunting, business for a long time, right? And since 2008, your company AdMark, you've placed over 2,000 candidates, mostly in the luxury sector. Yeah. So we're going to dive into some of that. We'll be focusing today's episode on hiring, recruiting, what it's like from the company's perspective, what do you need as a candidate if you're looking for a new job, how AI is changing, maybe some of that. So we'll get into all of that, but first things first, let's have a whiskey because that's what the show's all about. So we're starting today. We'll start up here with a 27-year-old Arran. This is a very special whiskey to me because it was a gift from a good friend of mine who actually bought a cask of Arran back from when they first started the distillery. I think they started in like 1994, 1995. So this is like from one of the first, it was within the first year that the whiskey distillery started. He bought a cask early on and then he bottled it at 27 euros. So you can't really buy this whiskey anywhere. This is a single cask. So I know usually you're into your sherry style whiskeys. We're going to get into heavier sherry kind of a little bit later on. This is a little bit on the lighter side, but for me, I just love the nose of this whiskey. It's very like honey, pineapple, like those kind of like dried sweet fruits, which I really, really love. So this is at 46.4% alcohol. So we're going to taste, we'll do one sip, no water, and then I'm going to add a couple of drops. Feel free if you want to.
Really get that very honey flavor. And
yeah.
Honey. There's a little bit of chocolatey at the end.
Yeah, I get that too on the finish, right?
Yeah.
So it's a pretty punchy whiskey. It's also our first whiskey, so we're kind of getting into it a little bit. But I think it's gorgeous. Like 27 years old, tons of flavor, really comes through, really quite well balanced. I get the chocolate notes on the end as well, but not too bitter. It's just a lot of sweetness for me, which I really, really like, kind of that honeysuckle, pineapple. So we're gonna rate the whiskey 1 out of 10, 1 being utter shite, as they say in Scotland, and 10 being Scottish freedom from Braveheart. So I'm gonna give that a solid 8.2. I think that's my rating. We're starting off strong. What's your rating?
Can I try all and rate it?
You can, but if you had to try right now, where do you think? Where do you think this? We're gonna try to do them individually, and then you can change your mind at the end.
I would go 8.
8, solid 8.
Solid 8.
We're starting off with a solid 8, so that's good.
Yeah. So I would look at it. This is something I would buy a few bottles of if I could.
Arran, I think, is doing really, really great stuff. I actually don't know exactly what they have out on the market right now. Not this exact style. This isn't quite exactly what Arran's making, but it gives you a sense of kind of what the distilleries.
But where's the distillery in Scotland? Which part is it?
It is in Speyside. So yeah, just an absolute beautiful whiskey. All right, so let's kick off. You have been dealing with people, basically
Yeah.
recruitment, placements, headhunting for most of your life, really, right?
Yeah.
Most of the career. What do you tell in today's world? What do you like when you sit down with an employer, right? And you mostly deal with luxury companies, right? Everything from high end like Apple, et cetera, to LVMH, to the Gucci, et cetera, the top brands. When you sit down with them and they're telling you about a new position, what do you tell them is important about the process? Like, how do they get a good candidate? How are they supposed to find the right person? What advice do you give them?
So I always tell them there's never a good candidate. It is about finding the right candidate for the company, because
Okay.
a good candidate for one company can be a bad candidate for the other company.
Okay.
So it's always about first defining the culture of the company, defining what the scope is of what they're looking for, and what are the short term and long term and midterm goals for this job that they're looking to hire. So I think each company needs to be very clear, defined on that objective before they actually go out in the market to look for someone.
And do you feel that companies have that information when you talk to them, or is that what you guys do and help them figure that out a little bit? Like,
I think most companies do. It depends on the roles. For senior executive roles, yes, they do. And I would say for junior roles, most companies are usually just plug and play, because they're like, oh, we had someone leave, we just need to fill that role.
right.
Right. And that's it. But when you're talking about senior leadership, especially if it's a new role that they're creating in the company, what's the purpose of creating this role? What's the backstory, why this role has been created, and everything? Then there has to be a story behind that to be able to go and attract the right talent.
Yeah. So it all starts with what the role objectives are, what the culture is of the company. Are they usually pretty clear with that in terms of what they're looking for?
Yeah, I would say they are. They are. I think most companies are very clear with what they're looking for. At the same time, it also depends on, what you're looking for is always not there in the market. So
Right.
when you start the search and you start figuring out what is actual reality versus actual, then you have to basically then tweak it accordingly based on what you see.
Is that usually for new roles? Because obviously, if somebody just left a position, right, then they've had that position before. Are they usually taking a lot of time to like change that position or change the requirements, or like how does that work?
So I don't think right now, okay, I would say now with technology and I don't think the job has changed. The skills required to do the job has changed.
Okay, in what way?
So let's say 10 years ago, if a company was looking for a CMO, chief marketing officer,
Yeah.
the skill sets that they were looking in that person 10 years ago is very different from what they're looking right now.
Probably even 2 years ago.
Yeah. So
or even 1 year
even
ago.
5 years ago, if you look at it, right? 10 years ago, no one talked about digital e-com and everything.
Yeah.
Today, now it's instead of digital, now it's all become about AI. It's become about data and everything. So the skill sets, the title remains the same,
Yeah.
but the skill sets required for the job has changed.
Yeah.
So now companies are trying to identify the unicorns, what do you call it?
Okay. What does that mean?
That means, they're trying to find the young, upcoming talent who are very much about AI and data and everything.
Yeah.
At the same time, some of the young talent do not want to go into traditional roles. They want to do something that is different and unique, and more looking at 10 years from now is where I can be with what the skill sets I'm looking at. Everyone talks about AI. So AI is the big buzzword
Yeah.
right now. So everyone's talking about that. And I think a lot of the younger talent is more looking at AI. So it's okay. Companies want to hire those people, but do they have the right culture, the right environment for those young generation to thrive and do well in that company?
In what you're seeing in the luxury industry, do they? I mean, I think of the luxury industry as massive, right? Like we're talking about huge brands, right? Gucci, LVMH, etc. These are billions and billions and dollars of companies. They've been around usually decades or even hundreds of years, right? Usually they're European, French, etc. Like in my perspective, when I think about those companies, I don't really think of them as like entrepreneurial, changing fast, having a fun environment for young people, or do they? Am I wrong? Do they have that? Is that culture shifting in your opinion?
I think they are shifting. Of course, at the end of the day, a business is a business, right? They are still all retail brands are retail, so they are going to have their shops, and people are going to be working in this as sales staff and everything. So that job is not going,
Yeah.
right? So I think the way they're shifting is how they're looking at the customer data, how they're integrating AI to manage the customer data, how they're engaging their customers through various touch points using AI, how they're creating a better experience for their customers in the store and making it more interactive through whether it's AI, through technology and everything. So there, those aspects are shifting. So it's becoming more of an experiential luxury than just just going shopping, right?
And
So
are people really still going shopping? Like, what is the data? Like, I'm just using myself as an example. I would say I barely go into an actual store to buy something anymore, right? Like, I know what I like. I most likely just order it online, right? Once in a while, if I'm going to buy maybe a nice jacket or something like that, sure, I'll go to, a store I love and go try it on just because I want to see what that feels like. But even with clothes and et cetera, people get it shipped and then just return it if it doesn't, if they don't like it or they change their size. What's actually happening in the retail market, especially here in Hong Kong, right? Which we have every large brand has their massive store here. Like, are people actually still going into shops to buy stuff?
yeah, I think it depends on the product category, right? So if you're buying your daily consumable products, you're buying it online
Yeah.
because you know what you need to buy and you buy it online.
Or
Okay.
even your whiskey, right?
Yeah.
People are buying
Buying it
whiskey
online because you know you've
or-
tried the whiskey before, you
Yeah.
like it, it's a replenishment product.
Right.
Right. Now, but if you're going to spend 20,000 Hong Kong dollar on a bag, you're not going to buy it online.
Okay.
You want to go to the shop, you want to try it on, you want to gain the experience, you want to see different kinds of styles, products, and everything. People don't necessarily go to a store to shop, they're going for the experience that you won't get online.
And what is that experience that you think these companies need to deliver? Like, how is that? How are they trying to do that in a new way or in an interesting way for customers, you think?
I think it's, the experience starts right from, the moment you step into the store, even before you step into the store, when you start looking at online. And then, you walk into the store, it starts with your greeting. Some big brands are doing like, okay, they have private lounges. You come to the private lounge, they'll give you a glass of champagne. They'll pamper you in that way, especially if you're their VVIP customers. I think in general, a lot of consumers or customers, what you say is they like to walk into a store to shop because on the weekends when they're walking around the shopping malls with their family,
Yeah.
that's what they like to do, right? Yes, there are the younger generation or some of the us who may not want to buy luxury. So if you're not buying luxury,
Yeah.
yes, you don't mind, buying it online. If it doesn't fit, you don't like it,
Yeah.
you ship it back, right? But that does not happen when you're buying something worth 10, 15, 20,000, something
Yeah.
like that.
People
right?
still want that.
People want that experience. They want that personal touch. They want that personal feel. And that's why it's called luxury, because that's why retail sales, if you look at most luxury brands, their online business is somewhere only about 8 to 10% of their global sales.
Really?
Yeah.
That's surprising to me.
For luxury brands.
Yeah.
Now, for beauty brands, it's much higher. Beauty brands, it's in the range of 20, 25%, or even close to 30%. For sports brands and, casual brands, it's in the range of 20, 25%.
But it's still the vast majority of what you're telling me. Somewhere between 65 and 85% is still retail in the store. That's where people are still going to buy stuff. That, to
Yes.
me, that's surprising. Because I know for me, maybe I'm skewed. And I hate going shopping, right? I think I was skewed from being a kid because I remember my mom used to like always drag me around with her to like, and I always used to have to hold the bags when I was like,
Yeah.
my mom would go do shopping and I was sitting there. And obviously, when I was a kid, I didn't have a phone or anything like that, so I used to just sit there in these like boutique stores while my mom was shopping, and I was just sitting around. So I think going all the way back, I have some trauma from from retail shopping. So if you get me to go shop somewhere, I'm like in, I buy it, I'm out. Like I don't want to sit and try things. But not what the majority of people do. It sounds.
Yeah, and I think the trauma that you went through, I think most kids went through that same thing. And I used to go shopping with my mom, and
Yeah.
I used to be carrying bags, and
Yeah, I
I
hate
used to
that.
go to buy one thing, and I'm done. But then, right. So yes, I think in general, I think it's also the gender, right? I think males usually have a very specific thing they want to buy.
Right.
They go into the shop, same like me.
Yeah, if I want to go buy like sneakers, I'm gonna go buy sneakers. I'm gonna go to a sneaker store and buy that one thing, and I'm in it now.
But then you should ask the same question to women. They enjoy window shopping. Window shopping is a hobby for them,
Yeah.
right? So they don't mind spending few hours in the mall. So even if you walk around on the weekends in Hong Kong, for example, on Saturday, Sunday, whether you go to IFC, Pacific Place, they're filled with families.
Yeah.
People are walking around. Maybe they're not shopping as much as they used to shop because
Yeah.
consumers have really dropped their spending.
Yeah.
And that's why you see it in not only in retail luxury, but in general everywhere you see the spending is lower.
We're seeing it in the whiskey industry for sure. People are it's interesting in the whiskey industry, at least what we're seeing. We're chatting about this. So we run Whiskey Hammer, right, which is one of our businesses, the auction business. And what we've seen in the last few years is the number of lots we sell is actually going up or staying the same, but going up a little bit. So people are buying, the volume is there. They're just not spending the same amount that they used to spend. Is that what you're seeing across the luxury industry?
Yeah, I definitely see that. And I think that's why a lot of the luxury brands are coming up with the entry level products for the entry level luxury shopper, where, they're not reducing the prices, but they're coming up with the entry level products, right?
Yeah.
Because there's generations, like our parents' generations, who used to go and buy the bags. They used to go enjoy the luxury shopping. They wanted that 3 Louis Vuitton bags. They wanted the, 5 these brand bags
Yeah.
and all that. Then our generation, we are okay with 1 or 2 luxury items. We don't need 10 that our parents had.
Right.
But the younger generation are like, they're buying more out of necessity. So what they need, okay, I need one bag. I'll go and buy one nice bag and that's it. But I like skiing, so I'm going to go and spend stuff on skiing. I want to be healthier, so I'm going to go and spend stuff on some outdoor things. So it's
Right.
the younger generation, I would say, Gen Zs and Ys and X, whatever you call them nowadays,
Yeah.
they go and move to the necessity shopping. Like they buy when they need it.
Yeah.
They don't buy it because they
Just just to have something cool.
have something to call, right?
Yeah.
So I think there has been a shift in the consumers, and I think luxury brands also now figuring out how to attract these younger consumers by coming up with products that are necessary not at a certain price point, but at a lower price point, but still has the same quality and the brand recognition for them.
All right, let's talk more about we talked a little bit about the company side. Let's talk more about the candidate side, but let's have a whiskey in between. So next whiskey we're having or tasting today is a very, very special whiskey I got out for you. So there's not many bottles of this actually that were ever produced in the world. So this is Ichiro Malt, the Joker. So this is the last release of 52 card playing series by it's actually from the Hanyu distillery, which is a closed distillery. So Hanyu closed in 2000. This is done by Ichiro, and so they did a whole playing card series, and they did 2 of the Jokers actually. So they did a multicolor Joker, and then they did a monochrome Joker. The monochrome black and white Joker is even more rare, but this particular release, I think there was only about 3,500 bottles globally. So this was actually a whiskey we had left from the whiskey fund when we did the first fund, which you were part of. So I thought it'd be a special one for us to try together. So this was bottled in 2014. It's a mix of vintages between, I think it's 6 different vintages, 1985 to 2000. They blended together vintages, and this is the Ichiro Malt Joker.
Do you know of anyone who has all the 52 bottles?
I used to. So there was a guy here in Hong Kong, Arran Chan, I think his name was. He had a bar here where he had all of them. This is at 57% alcohol, as you just discovered. Maybe I should have told you that before.
That's a bit strong.
57% alcohol will put some hair on your chest there.
Yeah, I would just light it up. I just put a match in. I would be like,
yeah, you're on fire. So highly recommend a couple of drops of water with this one to let it open up. But yeah, let's get your thoughts on this whiskey. So this is obviously sherry. This is power bomb. This is very Japanese style to me in the sense that it's for me compared to, for example, the Arran. This is less subtle. This is actually a little bit more
powerful.
punchy.
Very, very punchy.
Very powerful whiskey.
And I love Japanese whiskey, right? So if I tell you my story, like before even a lot of people knew about Japanese whiskeys, I started buying Japanese whiskeys I bought my first bottle of Yamazaki 12 about 14 years ago for 150 Hong Kong dollars.
Yeah.
And now I think that bottle is worth 3,000 Hong Kong dollars.
I remember you were doing trips to Japan, just like hoarding Japanese whiskey. How
Yeah.
did you get into it? What made you get into whiskey? What? So we're talking what, 2012, 2013?
Yeah. So
Way before most of the world cared about Japanese whiskey, even before the Japanese cared about
Yeah.
Japanese whiskey. Let's be clear about that. They didn't really care that much. You could buy as much back then. You could buy as much Yamazaki 30 as you wanted.
Yeah. So I was always a whiskey drinker. So I was, coming from India, everyone drinks whiskey, right?
Yep.
So as you know, so I was always, whiskey was my go-to drink.
But that was more blend, right?
Yeah, blend. It
label.
was black label, simple,
Yeah.
right? But then when I started going to Japan a lot, one of my ex-colleagues used to work with me. She was the first one who told me, hey, can you get me a bottle of Yamazaki 12? I was like, why would you buy Japanese whiskey? If you buy Scotch, right? Because for me, my Japanese whiskey knowledge was nothing. I was like, why would you buy Yamazaki 12? She's like, no, just bring it to the office. We'll try it. I'm like 12 years old and like whatever. So I bought a bottle and I loved it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay.
Then you were hooked.
I was hooked to it. And then I started with 12, then went to 18. Then I saw Hibiki 17, Hibiki 21, Hibiki 30. And then I just like, every time I used to go to Japan, I used to tell my colleague, hey, here's a card. Can we go and just go to these shops and pick up like 6, 8, 10 bottles? At one point, they told me, no more whiskey. We don't have place to store it in
How
our
many
office.
bottles of whiskey do you think, Japanese whiskey, do you think you accumulated at one point? What was the height? How many bottles do you think were sitting around your office in Japan or your home in Hong Kong altogether?
So I think at one point in Japan, I had almost about 40 bottles, 50 bottles sitting around in the office.
It's a lot of whiskey.
I still have about, last count from last month was about 18 bottles or 15 or 18 bottles in my office in Japan.
But you've stopped buying.
I've stopped buying because the prices have become ridiculous right now. If I still see an odd deal, I will still go online. And if I see an odd deal, because the yen being so cheap, I'll still try to pick up a bottle here or there. I just find a unique deal. In Hong Kong, I still have about 30, 35 bottles of Japanese whiskey.
Still got some good Japanese whiskey there. Yeah, this is a crazy unique bottle. So this is probably about 5,000. I think current retail price would be about 5,000 pounds or about $8,000 US per bottle.
So it does taste a lot of difference once you put water in it up and it opens up. Yeah. Because that 57 really drops it down to the 40s. And then it's less punchy.
Yeah, it needs a bit of time to develop. You need to give it the water. And then you start to get some of these secondary and tertiary notes and it kind of calms down a little bit. For me, again, this is all very personal, but I think the Arran was a little more complex. I'm going to give the Ichiro Malt a solid 7.8 out of 10.
I'll give it 7.5.
Okay.
I like it, but I'll prefer the Arran. I just felt the Arran was easier to drink. Yeah. I don't know, because you said this is a blend of different ages, so I don't know whether
there's some younger stuff in there, there's some older stuff in there. The brilliance of this was the marketing, right? Yeah. To create a 52 card set, make them all in different limited quantities, and then release them over time, and people tried to obviously create a collection, right? I think there was only probably maybe a dozen people or maybe even less than that in the whole world who actually were able to create a whole collection, because most of the whiskey was sold and just got drunk, right? People bought one bottle here or one bottle there, but to sit and wait over a period of years and collect all the bottles kind of like barely happened. Luxury, I think, is all about limited supply, scarce supply. Is that still the strategy you see from most companies when they're trying to, whether it's a Birkin bag or anything? Is that still what luxury is today? Is it about scarcity or hard to get items?
Yeah, so I think if you just go by the real definition of luxury, right? Luxury means that it's a luxurious thing to have it. It's hard to have it, right? Yeah. So everyone should not be able to buy it. That's the whole word about the word luxury. I think there are certain brands that do really well, like you mentioned, the Birkin and Kelly. I think they are the two bags that created a true supply and demand issue, where there are people on the wait list for a year, 2 years for that bag.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'll ever understand why, but maybe you can explain it to me. What?
I don't know. True, I really don't know why. And if you see the price, so it's an investment. So if you see if you see the value of that bag, if you talk about a Birkin or a Kelly, the Birkin or Kelly has really doubled in value over the last 10
How
years.
much? Educate me. What's it at?
I don't know right now, but if and I don't know the
Range.
exact numbers
Yeah.
because I've never bought one and I don't plan to buy one. but I would say that
Future Mrs. Moore, if you're listening, you might get one.
I would prefer to buy whiskey with that money.
Okay.
Let me put it that way.
Future Mrs. Moore is gonna have a much bigger Japanese whiskey collection than a
true.
Birkin bag. All right.
So I would say about 10 years ago, I think the bag was about 12,000 US.
Yeah.
And I think the same bag today is about somewhere between 28,000 US.
Can you actually resell this bag? You said the word investment. Like if I somehow get my hands on this bag, is this something you could, no, right? That's not really what happens. You're buying it to use it, or you're buying it as a gift, right?
You can. So there are certain
There is a
bags.
secondary market.
There is a secondary market for certain bags, right? So even like if you go to, I don't know if the auction houses had it in bags, but they have it for watches and all that.
Yeah.
And there are certain secondary market for luxury bags where, a lot of times people, if they buy a luxury bag, they might wear it 4 times or 5 times, right?
Yeah.
Celebrities, top rich people, they wear it 4 or 5 times, and then they don't want to be seen in the society with the same bag the 7th time. So then they will either resell it, or they'll they'll give it to someone, or that person will resell it and exchange it or something. So there is always a secondary market.
Yeah, there's a really I learned about this organization that is pretty big in the US, Runway, I think it's called, right, where you can basically rent a very, very expensive dress to wear to a wedding or a special occasion, and you just run that, and I think they're doing really well. So there's tons of different sites that do this kind of things, or services that let you rent whatever it is you want to rent just for that night instead of having to buy the whole thing.
Yeah, and there are also companies in the US where you can just you don't want to keep changing your wardrobe every month. So you can just rent a new wardrobe every month.
Really?
Yeah.
That seems like a lot of work. That seems like more work. Why doesn't it seem like less
So you
work?
can literally okay, I want 10 shirts or 12 shirts for this month.
Yeah.
And then just return those 12 shirts, and the next month get another 12 shirts.
Oh man, you're making me feel so poor. I just I have so little effort. I'm still wearing like the same t-shirts.
I'm okay with t-shirts and jeans. We don't need anything fancy.
I'm going more the Steve Jobs, way with things. I don't wear all black turtlenecks, but I mostly just like have a few select shirts, and that's kind of about it.
Steve wore just black turtleneck and denim.
Yeah, and that was it, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't need anything else.
Right.
He didn't want to focus on having to make that choice every day, right? It was all about, I don't care about that. I want to focus on making the best Apple Watch or whatever it was, right? So anyway, so let's get back to luxury market. If I'm a recent graduate, or let's say even I'm in my 20s, or let's say 30s, and I'm looking to now get a job in the luxury industry, what advice would you have for someone like that, or somebody who wants to work, who loves, let's say, fashion, right, and they really want to get into the world of fashion? What should they be studying? What experience should they have? What advice would you give someone like that?
So if you see most university graduates, and most time when luxury brands recruit fresh out of universities, whether it's in Europe, US, anywhere, they usually at least have everyone starting the store for the first 6 months. And I think that's a very good thing. And if companies don't do that, they should, because that really gives you the actual hands-on information on the business. You're dealing with the customers, you're understanding where the maximum money is made, right? Because that's where the brand makes the money, is in the store.
Yeah.
The brand is not making the money in the office, it's making it in the store.
Yeah.
And whatever happens in the store is coming from the office. So I think most people should start off in the store for at least 6 months. If you're really passionate about luxury, right? If you come out and tell me, I really want to be in luxury and I want to build my career in the luxury, and in 20 years from now, I want to be a CEO of a luxury company, then my first thing I'll tell you is, okay, go work in the store for 6 months.
Get to know the customer.
Get to know the customer. Get to see how the business works. What's the whole experience working in the store, the interaction with the customer, the whole purchase, the whole what you call as a sales journey. Right from the the storytelling about the product, all that, knowing about the brand, the product, the history, the heritage, all that. So that builds your foundation.
Yeah.
Right.
But do people who, like, let's say they go down that path and then they become store manager or whatever, right? Do they then actually have a path to go to operations head office, or where do they go once you're a store manager? What's the next step for them?
So if I know a lot of CEOs today for luxury brands, they all were store managers 20 years ago.
Okay. So
So
that is where it comes from.
yeah, so usually it comes, you can be a CEO from different parts. So it's not necessary when you start in the store, you continue in the store to take the store manager part.
Yeah.
You start in the store to get to know the business and the brand.
Yeah.
Then you can take on a role in the office, whether it's in marketing, in product, in like or merchandising, or it could be in operations or everything. But your foundation is there that you know the brand story, the
Yeah.
heritage, how the whole brand functions at the store, right? So
So like right now, what are, you don't have to say the companies obviously, but what are the main types of roles that you are recruiting for right now? What types of roles are the ones that that luxury companies use your service, your recruitment company to find? Is it mostly CMOs? Is it what is it?
So I would say it's it varies, right? So a lot of roles around merchandising that are open right now. Merchandising is basically where the person is deciding what to buy for the market.
Yeah.
So you have a merchandising team in the luxury brand. They will work with headquarters to understand what's the collection coming out, and then they'll share some feedback about what's the collection needed for my market or for the Asia market or for
Yeah.
China market. So those roles are in demand right now. Of course, e-commerce is always in demand. Every company is looking to hire e-commerce people because the investment in e-commerce versus revenue coming for e-commerce, it's very profitable.
Yeah.
So definitely, people want to grow and develop their e-commerce and keep changing e-commerce because today e-commerce years ago was okay. You had different platforms, whether it was Tmall, whether it was JD, and you had
Yeah.
different platforms. But now there are new platforms come up. The younger generation are more talking about the Red Book or what you call a
Yeah.
Shatangshu and everything. So now
In China, yeah,
in
that's
China,
what everybody
right?
uses.
And
The
in
Red Book.
Japan, you have different platforms. In Korea, you have different platforms. So there's been a transition of where you're shopping online also. So that e-commerce will always be in demand right now. And I think marketing, but like I said, yes, people are looking for CMO roles. The CMO role has not changed, but now they're not looking for this traditional people that they were looking 5, 7 years ago. They're looking for that plus people who are more AI savvy, digital, more tech savvy, and understand how to integrate data into, in driving customer engagement and marketing, right?
And are you finding candidates like, so in your business right now, is the challenge the candidates or is it the positions or is it a bit of both? Like obviously it's a matching process, right? You're constantly looking at new positions and you always have a database of candidates. And what's the bigger challenge right now? Finding the candidates with that experience that they need, are they there? Like the guys who have the AI and have the marketing, is that out there?
So I think it depends on market to market. So I think in Japan, Japan traditionally has been a candidate short market.
Yeah.
So regardless of the role, there are more jobs available in Japan than the talent available in Japan.
But yeah, right. That
Right.
makes sense. Because
That's
the requirements are,
yeah.
obviously you have to speak Japanese. You
Yeah.
have to,
So
yeah. So
that's just how it is. I think today, if you look at Asia, I would say the talent pool is there, right? So I think the skill sets that clients are looking for is there. I just feel that the talent has more choices to choose from. And I think over the last 5 years, 7 years, the priority has changed in what people are looking for when they look for a job. So I would say 5 years ago, yes, it was about the title, it was about the money, it was about the company reputation and everything. Today, it's more about the benefits. So
yeah.
people now are more focused on, okay, can I work from home? Do I have flex hours in the office? How many holidays do I get? And then they talk about title and money and everything.
Yeah.
So that's
Which is
been
a huge shift.
it's a huge shift, right? So I think that's where challenges becomes is finding that talent who can match that company that meets their requirements. So yes, today a lot of talent is there. So employers are also picky, but also understand that even talent is starting to become picky as where they can want to choose.
So you were talking about market to market, and your business operates in Japan, Hong Kong, and mainland China, Shanghai mostly, right? So you told us a bit about Japan. Okay, Japan, there's more jobs than there are candidates, and because of the requirements. What's it like in Hong Kong, and what's it like in Shanghai?
So in China, I would say there is talent. So it's the reverse of Japan. So it's easy to find the talent in China. I think jobs, China economy is going, mainland China economy and Hong Kong going through a transition. So I think if I just talk about today, at least within retail luxury in space, I would say the hiring is not as great as it used to be. So there's more talent available. The hiring in China has shifted a lot towards tech. So, with all, again, coming back to AI, with all the buzz around AI and everything, a
And
lot
the
of
China-US race.
is race.
AI,
Yeah.
it's all
So there's a lot of hiring around AI. There's a lot of hiring around tech. Gaming has become big in China. So there's a lot of hiring around gaming industry.
Yep.
So not the industries, unfortunately, not the industry that we are in,
Right.
but retail luxury. But I still think retail luxury China, mainland China is, if not the first, it's the second largest market for most brands in the world, with US and China being the top two markets for most luxury brands in the world.
And I mean, you look at live shopping days, like what 10/10 Singles Day and stuff like that. It blows. Like in terms of retail sales, it's not even close to anything else. It's so much bigger on such a scale that most people don't really even fully understand how big those kind of days are, right?
So it's about value, right? So whenever there's a value, there's a lot of shopping. Now, if you see, I'm not sure if you've seen, like today now, China declared Sanya as like a duty-free port.
Okay.
And just in 3 days, I think they did like 600 million US in sales, all of Sanya in retail.
Wow.
Because it was duty free, so the prices of the brands.
This is mainland Chinese people going to Sanya, buy stuff, and go home, basically.
Yeah, because Sanya was declared, like Hainan Island was declared as a part of Hainan, or most of Hainan Island was declared as a duty free port.
Wow.
So the price difference of buying the same luxury brand in Hainan, or any brand in Hainan versus other cities in China, was about 18 to 20%.
Yeah.
So that
just makes sense.
It makes sense. So that's a value. So I think today most people are going value shopping. So when they see a value, they'll buy. It's not that they're not spending, but they're spending wisely. They're spending on value. So there's a lot of money in China on luxury spending, but it's more value driven.
And you've been in this industry for 20 plus years. You've seen the cycles. Are we just in another cycle? I guess the big question that's happening in the whiskey world right now, and I'm curious to get your opinion on what you think of this for luxury, what you're seeing is this just another cycle? As in, okay, things are a bit down right now, but give it 2 years, give it 3 years, give it 5 years, things will be back? Or is this something more fundamental that's shifting in, as we've been talking about, consumers are shifting behavior and they want value and they're never going to want that top end luxury again? What's your view?
So, okay, there are always a certain level of consumers, the uber rich, right? For them, it does not make a difference.
Yeah.
Right? So let's leave those apart. I think with the younger generation, they are shifting. If you see, I think whiskey, of course, value, but also if you see the younger generation, as data suggests, they're not drinking as much as their parents' generation.
I think that's true in like places like the US and Europe. I would challenge that if that's really true in places like India or China or in Asia. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what the statistics are.
China, definitely, I've seen it, because if you see some of the alcohol companies and you see their sales in China, and if I see because I go to Shanghai every week, so if I see some of the younger people out, they'll have a glass of wine. That's it. And that's it for them.
They're not Gumbe, a whole bottle of Malt.
So that's
Thankfully.
that's the parents' generation, right? That's the parents' generation, or not even the parents, maybe a little bit our generation, you would say. So yes, they're more cautious. So they're coming back to what they prefer to spending is what we call as the experiential luxury. If they find a good experience, they will go. So now they're spending more on travel. So they'll go. They don't mind going on a cruise. They will go. If you see, they'll go and spend on high-end hotels.
Right.
But when they go out to eat, they won't spend that much on their lunches and dinners.
Right.
Because they want to experience staying in the high-end properties. They want to go and experience, going skiing in one of the top resorts in the world. So that is what is luxury for them right now. So that is what the shift has become more towards the experiential luxury, right? So it's not that they don't have the money. Also, as I'm sure, as being in the whiskey business, like, luxury shopping is more about disposable income. Right. So
you don't need this stuff.
You don't need this stuff, right? So it's more about disposable income. I think given how the global markets have worked over the last few years, a lot of people have had challenges with their disposable income. So if your disposable income is low, then you're really thinking, where do you want to spend it? It's not that you don't want to spend it. It's not that you don't want to go out and have
you're making different choices.
You're making different choices.
Yes, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of choices, I chose this one because I know you love Glendronach, and I think Glendronach as a brand, a special place in your heart. If I remember correctly, it was one of the few brands that I think got you into, maybe not got you into Scotch, but earlier on you were buying quite a lot of this Glendronach 18. This is not the Glendronach 18. This is a relatively new release from the Glendronach called Ode to the Dark. So they did this is a non-age statement. So we don't know how old it is. It's at 50% alcohol. I'll warn you in advance this time.
Okay.
But take a look at just that color, right? I mean, even comparing to everything else here on the table, which are also sherry style whiskeys, all of the age, whatever that age is, in Pedro Jimenez sherry cask. So, and you get that fully on the nose. I mean, that is all the way.
PX cask,
This is
right.
the PX. Oh, that's lovely. I'll give you a second to enjoy that. But I would suggest once again. So this is not I don't remember the exact retail value of this, but I think this is about 150, 160 pounds, somewhere in that range. So this is not a very, compared to obviously the Ichiro, which is.
See, the 7% really makes a difference because this is 50 and that was 57. So it didn't feel that punchy without the water versus that one.
Maybe, or you're now used to just drinking. We're now on our third whiskey.
maybe I just
so you're enjoying the whiskey. So to me, this is very elegant, very sherry, but because it's not, I think, aged that long, it's got a little bit of a harshness on the finish for me. So I think this is a fantastic whiskey. I think it's a great value whiskey, but it doesn't have the finish, the smoothness of finish that I get when you have more aged whiskeys, let's say 15. Like if you compare this to the Glendronach 15 or 18, I would, obviously those are more expensive, but those would be a preferable.
I think this would be a 10 or a 12 based on the finish. And if there's a harshness.
It's probably a mix, right? So they don't want to put the age on there, but there's some 10 and 12. There might be a bit of 15. There's probably a lot of 6 and 7-year-old Glendronach in there, and they mix it all together to get.
The nose is beautiful. Yes.
I would say color and nose amazing. First taste really nice. Finish a bit harsh for me.
It's hurting on the throat a little bit for me.
Yeah, I agree. So I would give this probably a solid 7.
Same.
Yeah.
Let me try it a little bit more.
It is better with a bit of water. So how many candidates do you or your company kind of meet with, like on a weekly, monthly basis? Are you actually still meeting with all these different candidates? Is it phone? Is it what do you do when somebody says, hey, I'm looking for a job? Or is your approach more that once there's a position, you're then doing the headhunting part where you're going finding somebody who's already in a job and then convincing them to come take this job? What's the breakup?
I would say 95% of our work is actually executive search, so headhunting. So usually first we get the brief from the client and then we look at where the candidates are.
Yeah.
Some could be someone we already know from before, from our database. So we of course reach out to them first. And if the people that we know are not right, then we go and find people, based on, okay, we're looking for X company, who are the competitors? These are the competitors, who are the people at the company? We approach them.
Right.
In terms of meeting people, I think it really depends on the search. Like recently, I did a global head of retail for a brand, and that person could come from anywhere in the world.
Okay.
So it was difficult for me to meet people if I'm interviewing people in the US and the UK and everything. So it's difficult. If it's a local-based search, I usually encourage my team members to meet them.
Yeah.
So if someone is in Hong Kong looking for a Hong Kong search, we try to meet the person. But if you're doing a cross-border search, we try to do it via video.
Yeah. And how are you using AI in your company, if at all, in terms of helping you to find candidates or even to find positions that might be open? Are you implementing any parts of AI in a different way?
So I wouldn't say we're using AI for searching candidates. I would say we're using AI to help create job descriptions to be able to to share with candidates. We're using AI to help create stories on email to help create to write to candidates to attract them for the jobs. We're using AI for day-to-day, emails and everything.
Yeah.
because in terms of because we are head hunting, we're actually finding people and now, especially if you look at the market like Japan, where AI is only looking at people who have their data, have their information online,
Right.
right? A lot of people in Japan are not online, so their not profiles are not on LinkedIn. So,
Oh, okay. So
so
that's a challenge.
that's a challenge. So if their profile is not LinkedIn, AI is not going to be able to find that person,
Right.
right? So that's the challenge in our business. I think AI works when you're doing really mass hiring, right? So if you're trying to hire 500 engineers and you post a job
Yeah.
and you get 1,000 resumes, then AI can filter out those resumes and come up with the qualified resumes,
Yeah.
right? But if I'm looking for a CEO for a company,
That's a different.
I can't use AI because
Yeah.
that's a very human touch
Yeah.
that I have to pick up the phone, call the person, speak to the person, interview the person, build that relationship.
And are you finding companies as a trend are doing more of that search on their own versus using executive search companies? Or is it pretty much been the same? They always, X number of roles, they're always going to use executive search. So that's that.
No, I think it shifted. So I would say for senior searches, I would say C level -1, companies are still using recruiters
Yeah.
because at that level, they know that sometimes candidates, there are people who they're looking for who are already employed with certain companies and they may not be able to approach them, especially if it's a confidential search. So if it's a confidential search, then the company does not want to approach. Let's say, if, you're
A direct competitor.
direct competitor
Yeah.
because then they will know, oh, my competitor is looking for someone like that.
Yeah.
I think at the junior level roles, a lot of companies are doing direct hiring right now. And I think that's mainly reason is because, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of talent available in the market today, given the economy situation. So especially in Hong Kong and China, there are a lot of people who are actively looking for jobs. So when a company contacts them directly through their in-house talent team, they're responsive. So I think in the last 5 years, it's shifted a lot where for, I would say, non-managerial roles or even up to manager levels, a lot of companies have started to do their own direct hiring through referrals, through their internal talent acquisition
Yeah,
team.
all that
all
stuff has
that,
just
yeah.
been getting growing. So when you get a candidate, let's say, and you're really trying to convince them to take a job, like tell me some fun stories of like what that process is like. Because I assume you go to people, obviously you have the salary and blah blah, and they say, no, I'm not interested. You don't take that as a no. I assume you try to push a little bit further, right? What is that process like?
For me, my philosophy is when good people like to work with good people,
Yeah.
right? I never start off with talking about the salary or the title or the company. I will always start off selling up the boss. So I'll say, hey, I just met this amazing guy. For example, if I'm trying to find someone for you, I met Rickesh. He's really here's his whole story. Got into whiskey some years ago,
Yeah.
created the first whiskey fund, sold the fund. Now he's doing this, blah, blah, blah. I get you hooked on to Rickesh.
That you should want to work in this.
Work with.
Yeah.
I said, go have a meeting with Rickesh,
Okay.
right? So it's all about hooking the person up to a story. Now, that story could be the story of the company. It could be an individual story.
Right.
So all I talk about, I always tell my team is create a good story. And if you're able to attract people to the story, half your job is done.
Right. Because then they want that. They've
They
already
want-
started by
Yes.
wanting something
Yes.
different.
Right.
But do you also try to find out what their pain points are in their current situation? Are people open about that? Because if they're talking about switching jobs, which you said is like 90+%, either the new job has to be better in some way, or there's something here that I don't like, right, in my current position that you're somehow going to fix.
Right. So I think great people are never actively looking. Great talent is never actively looking for jobs. Jobs always come to them,
Yeah.
right? Unless there's a big, big, big issue for them. Yeah, you have to definitely understand what their pain points are. And I think usually I look at it as there are, for any person, whether regardless of the level, there are 5 main pain points. One, it starts with your boss. You don't like the boss. That's one of the big pain points, right? The culture of the company, right? So that's another second pain point.
Yeah.
Then of course it's money, lack of promotion. Your boss is not leaving. You can't get your boss's job. Then you're stuck in the same role for 5 years. So you have to understand these 3 or 4 pain points.
Yeah.
And then you have to use it to see, is the other company able to solve any of these pain points? And if you feel they're not, then I don't think you should also I would not recommend that person for
Yeah.
that job, because then that person is going to face the same.
They're not going to be happy. And you only get paid partially. They have to keep them hired for X amount of time before you make all your money, right? So you get some money money for doing the search, some for the placement, and then how long do they have to keep them hired before you actually get your full fee?
No, so we get paid 30 days after they join.
Okay.
That's our terms and conditions, right? So we get paid a full fee 30 days after they join.
Okay.
But most companies have what you call as the probation period, which is usually 3 months to
Right.
6 months, depending on company to company and market to market.
Yeah.
So if something goes wrong between the 3 to 6 months, then it's a 50-50 thing, right? I didn't put a gun to your head to make you hire this person. I recommended.
Right. You made the decision.
You made the decision. So you don't give me credit for the successes, but you can't also blame me for the failures, right? So then it's really about a partnership. Okay, that we'll say, okay, fine, we'll find you a free replacement. We won't give you the money back.
Right. Okay.
Right. But as long as it's no fault of the client. Today, if the company shut down, that's a different matter.
Yeah.
Or
If this candidate actually did something wrong,
or
then
performance issues, or the candidate decided to quit or whatever,
right.
that's a different issue, right? So that is clearly, our clauses clearly state it's no fault of the client.
Yeah. How often is it where, you've got a candidate, you've got a company, they've gone through the interviewing, they kind of like each other, but then the candidate gets cold feet or whatever? Does that happen?
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
In that kind of last stage, they go,
In
"No,
really
I'm
in the
not gonna
last stage, it happens a lot.
go." Any examples or stories
There are-
you can
you know,
share that?
there are different stories and examples, right? It happens where I've had stories where a person has signed an offer letter and basically didn't show up to work on the first day. And then I call the person up and I'm like, hey, where are you?
Where the fuck are you?
Oh, sorry, I forgot. I changed my mind. I got another offer. I accepted another offer. Like, so why didn't you tell me? Like, oh, I didn't know I have to tell you that.
You're kidding. They didn't realize
was like-
that they shouldn't tell you that they're not taking the
I
job.
was like, the company is waiting for you. Like, yeah, please, can you tell them that I'm not coming?
Wow.
I was like,
And this is a senior role.
yeah, this is a mid-management role,
Okay.
right? This was about 8-9 years ago, mid-management. Then there was another story where this was a relocation. So it was basically cold feet where this person was relocating from, I think, it was from Japan to Hong Kong for a job. And the movers had come in, packed all the boxes, everything. Flight was in 2 hours for the airport to fly to Hong Kong. Broke down. No,
Wow.
I cannot leave Japan.
What was that about?
Just lived in Japan for 15 years. Just never thought of leaving Japan.
Yeah.
Everything was packed. Flight tickets were booked.
That's really last minute.
Really last minute. And basically broke down. I can't leave Japan.
Wow. And what do you do in that situation? What can you do?
You can't.
You're not going to force them.
You can't. You can't do anything. And sometimes you feel that it's good that it happened now versus 2 months after they join the company.
Sure, but you must also be like, fuck,
Yeah.
that sucks.
So yes, yes, but we don't break off the relationship because things. See, at the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings. We have the right to change our mind,
Yeah.
right? Human beings are the most difficult people to deal with,
Yeah.
right? You have dogs at home. It's easier to
Yeah, you could. Yeah, they can be trained.
With human
They
beings,
have commands.
I could say yes today, and then you'll say, but you said yesterday yes. I'm like, yeah, but I changed my mind. So
So you're making a good case for why everyone wants to build an AI company that just listens and just executes on what you tell it to do, right?
yeah, a lot of times previously in Hong Kong, there was a shortage of talent. So we had to bring in, for senior roles, we had to bring in people from outside. So I moved people from Dubai or London or Paris. And now, they're coming to Hong Kong for the first time. They're coming in here for the interviews. Of course, I'm dining them at the best restaurants, taking
Right.
them out to the best bars, showing them the good side of Hong Kong.
Right.
And then everything. And then they're all like, oh, yes, I will move here and I'll move here. And they move here and they enjoy it. But then, yes, we have to make them feel when they come in for interviews, especially if they're coming from out of the, especially from different parts of the world, you have to do a lot of work to show them around Hong Kong. You have to say the good things about Hong Kong, bad things about Hong Kong. Sometimes I have to do cost of living adjustment. I'm coming from Dubai, which is zero tax. Okay, yes, but Hong Kong's 15% tax, but Dubai is zero tax. And
Yeah.
now you have to find out what is there in Dubai that is taxed, that is not taxed in Hong Kong.
Yeah, right.
So you have to show all those things, right? So there's a lot of those stories that we had to do.
And a lot of people have family, so it's about the
Family, yeah.
and-
And
Do you have that happen a lot where the candidate wants to move and let's say the spouse or whatever is the block?
Yeah. So usually when it comes to relocation, that's one of the first things we try to get out of the way in the first few rounds of the interview.
Or do you actually want to move
Yeah.
countries?
Do you want to move country? No. Have you spoken to your wife or partner, wife,
Yeah.
husband, partner? Have you
Yeah.
spoken to your partner? No. I like, okay, here's the job. Here's what I've told you. Is the role interesting? Yes. Okay, I'm going to give you a day or so.
Yeah.
Discuss it with your partner. And if your partner is okay to make the move, then let's take it further. Because I don't want to waste your time and my time having this discussion if it's a no-no. So we try to get that. But even how much of you try to get it out of the way, many times it's happened last minute, they change.
Yeah, that's just part of it.
Yeah.
That's part of life. People change their mind. All right, we're gonna go with our fourth and final whiskey here. I think the Glendronach I think all of these whiskeys actually,
They open up after some water.
yeah, they need a little
Glendronach
bit.
is much better now. And I
Yeah.
will still keep it at a 7 for now. For me,
Yeah.
I'm still going strong with
All right, well let's end on a high note. This is a blended whiskey, but it's a 40-year-old Edrington blend. So this is a cask that we had in our collection. 1976 this was distilled, and then it was actually bottled in 2016 when it hit 40 years
Wow.
old. So we actually never released this whiskey. So we still have this whiskey in glass. Basically, these are in bottles sitting in Scotland. We think kind of perfect for a 40-year-old birthday or something like that, we might sell or bottle in some way. So this is at 46%. And here's a 40-year-old blended Edrington blend. So for anybody who doesn't know, Edrington owns Macallan. They also own Highland Park, and they used to own Famous Grouse at the time of when this was
Yeah.
bottled. They had Famous Grouse.
But Edrington never made their own whiskey with the brand name Edrington. I thought Edrington was always the parent company's name that
Yeah.
owned Macallan and everything. Yeah.
Exactly right. So this is just one of those casks. Somebody in 1976 had we assume some Macallan, some Highland Park, and some whatever else was kind of sitting around, and they decided to blend it together and experiment a little bit. And then somehow that got sold on the secondary market because they didn't want to bottle an Edrington blend. And so it was just an Edrington blend. So usually something like that would have ended up as Famous Grouse, right?
Yeah.
Famous Grouse is their blend. This ended up being something a bit more unique, something they were experimenting with. We don't really know what's in this. I mean, from the taste profile, I would hazard a guess that there's some Macallan in here. No idea what kind of age level. And then this is kind of the beauty of the industry is you have these outliers, right? Especially back in 1976, there wasn't as much control process in the warehouse. The guys could kind of do a little bit more of whatever they want. And then you have these kind of unique whiskeys here and there that are all just a bit of fun. Yeah, this is a 40-year-old Edrington blend. I love the nose. This is dried fruits, apricots.
It reminds me of a Macallan a lot, like a
Yeah.
Macallan.
Yeah.
Younger Macallan.
Yeah, I agree. Then you get that sherry, and because of the age, you're getting some really, really nice, easy to drink notes on the end.
Yeah.
I would give that let's see. I would give that I'm gonna give that an 8.2.
I like this better than the Arran for some reason. So I would give this 8.5.
All right. Yeah, this is
is
more
my
your style.
Yeah, more my favorite.
We're ending on a strong note here.
So when did the whole, I would say, regulations come into Scotch whiskey? Because for many years they were just doing their own thing. There was no kind of laws and regulations. When did it start coming into it?
I mean, they've been making Scotch whiskey for 600 years, right? So for most of that time, it was illicit distilling. I think it was somewhere around the 1800s and early 1900s where things started getting more formalized. And then they put in all the kind of rules and regulations. I think it was somewhere around the 1970s where they started defining, okay, single malt has to be 3 years. To be Scotch has to be over 40%, stuff like that. So all of that kind of stuff just got a lot more a lot more regulated and a lot more clear. But interesting, like, right, we were talking about Japan. They only did the rules for what could be called Japanese whiskey. They only made those rules like within the last 5 years. So before that, you could bring in whiskey from Scotland, bottle it in Japan, and call it Japanese whiskey. It's only now in the last few years we go, no, you have to actually mature the whiskey here in Scotland if you want to call it Japanese whiskey. It's amazing to me as well, I think, that Japanese people never really appreciated Japanese whiskey until probably the last 10 years, right? Now you go to Japan, people drink a lot more Japanese whiskey, but you've been going to Japan for last 20 years.
Yeah.
Back when you started going to Japan, nobody really drank Japanese whiskey, right?
Yeah, I think people drank Japanese whiskey, but I think a lot of people would
There's
drink.
more highballs.
It was highballs. Highballs also have only come in last 10 years.
Okay.
But I would say Suntory whiskey was a go-to whiskey that most people drank, right?
Yeah.
Suntory has been in Japan since, I don't know, 1870 something or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, long time.
Yeah, so Suntory whiskeys, but most of us don't know about Suntory whiskey because we only know them because they started to create Yamazaki or Hibiki. Which one was Suntory?
Suntory is Hibiki.
Hibiki,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So Suntory became famous because of Hibiki, but
Then they bought Jim Beam in the U.S.
yeah.
And yeah.
But Suntory whiskey has been in Japan for 200 years, right?
Yeah.
So they have a lot of local blends out there.
Yeah, and what do you think is the future of switching topics a little bit because we're going to we happen to be both going to India next week. What's your take on whiskey in the Indian market? I haven't been to India in 20 years, so I'm really excited to go to India and see what's happening there. From everything I read, obviously it's growing massively. What's been happening in India from your perspective in terms of there's always been Johnny Walker and Chivas and all that, but it's changed a lot. Now we're getting into single malt. Why? What's happening there?
Again, I think it's a generation change, right? Our parents' generation were all about Black Label and Johnny Walker and the blends.
Yeah.
Right? Now,
My first whiskey ever, probably my first alcoholic drink ever, was Cutty Sark with 7-Up because that's what my dad drank, and I think I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I used to help mix the drinks for my dad and his friends, and he'd allow me to have a sip or two. So Cutty 7-Up was like, my first experience in alcohol.
yeah, so my dad used to drink Teachers, which was a local thing, and then Black Label. So yeah, India has grown up on a whiskey palette.
Yeah.
Of course, Old Monk, as you know, in India is known for its Old Monk
Yep.
rum. Of course, that's there. Now, again, I think with our generation, and I see younger generation, a little bit younger, or even my brother, there's been a shift. There's a two kinds of drinking in India. If you're going out drinking, you're still drinking with blend.
Yeah.
You're not going higher because see I believe there's been a change in the import duty for whiskey in India recently, but
Yeah, only last year.
yeah, but it used to be 100% before.
150% actually, and
So-
now it's down to
So buying
75%.
single malt, buying good single malts were expensive in India. So if you go out for dinner or something, you're paying an arm and leg to drink a good single malt. So if you went out for dinner in India, you would not be paying that much. But if you're drinking at home, I think there's been a shift to single malt. I think there's a lot of education still needed.
Yeah.
Right. So if I have to go back, I would say India and single malt is what China was in wine in 2008 or 9. They knew about the big brand names in wine, but there was a lot of education to be done about wine. Right. So yes, but today also in India, when it comes to single malt, a lot of people look at single malt again. Okay, Macallan, Glenfiddich, Glenlivet. That's
about it.
That's single malt for them.
Right.
Those are the 3 big brands. Right. Well, when I go back to India, I always carry, thanks to you and thanks to other things of my Scotland trips, I'll carry these, small distillery single malts, and sometimes people have not even heard of them, but they love it.
So it's an education.
It's an education process.
What about Japanese? I noticed you're not taking any of your 80 bottles of
No, so,
hidden stash Japanese
so Japanese whiskeys, I used to take it, but then what used to happen is then my brother used to call his friends home, and then they used to finish bottle of Yamazaki 18
in one night.
Would say in an hour.
Yeah. So you don't want them to know that we've given away. I hope your brother's not going to listen to this podcast because now he's gonna be like asking for those bottles you have.
So I did take the Macallan 30 for him.
That's a special
from
bottle.
House for both my brothers, and then one of my brothers finished it in a night with his friends, and then he kept the other bottle from my other brother. So but because they love single malt. My brothers love single malt. My family loves single malt. So I think the education is coming in India, and I do think if you just go out by the numbers of Black Label, there's more Black Label. There's a Black Label is India's largest market, right?
Yeah.
India is the largest market for Black Label in the world, and I think it will change, and I think if import duty changes and comes down further, there would be a lot of demand for single malt.
Yeah, I think that's the free trade agreement, at least between the UK and India, right? So it was 150%. Now it's 75%. It goes down to, I think, 50% in the next 5 years, and it goes down to 40% in the next 10 years. So that's the plan, and that's the hope that there's a whole massive market in India that's untapped for single malt, which is already a market that enjoys whiskey. So again, half the battle's done. They're already into whiskey. They're just not into these kinds of whiskeys yet.
And I think there's money in India for whiskey investment because I think a lot of people are still educating themselves on alternative investments in India because everyone still thinks about stocks and bonds and property and everything. But whiskey as an alternative investment is definitely, there's room for that in India.
Still new.
But also I think the challenge in India is they have to trust someone, right? So they just don't do it blindly. So there's an education needed, there's a trust factor to be built. But I do know Indians also like that status thing where they're like, oh, I own 2 casks in Scotland. They'll be very proud to say that to their friends.
Right.
I
show the pictures
Yes.
of their trip to
Scotland, and I have
with
used these casks
Yeah.
and everything.
We have
So
to
that-
lean into that.
Yeah, so you have to lean into that, and I think there's a market for
Now,
that.
that
So-
comes back to what you were saying, luxury experience,
Yeah.
right? So you're buying a cask of whiskey. It's not, hey, I bought a cask of whiskey, I never see it. It's I visited it. Here's a bottle from my cask every year, or 5 bottles or whatever to share with friends.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that whole experience side of it, that creates a depth of love for what you have, right?
And that's the whole thing. Is like, okay, it's my dad's 50th birthday or my dad's 75th birthday. I'm going to give him a bottle from my cask
Right.
and give it to him for his 75th birthday. So that's an experience, and
Yeah, you
that's
share it together.
versus buying him a bottle of whiskey from anywhere.
Right.
So it's all about the whole experience and how do you connect these experiences with the Indian, consumers. I think that's going to make the difference.
Well, we'll find out. So we'll go in next week, and we'll have to have you back on as a guest later on, and we can talk more about the Indian market. Thank you so much. One last question, which I'll ask. I'm going to start asking every guest. What's something, either personally or professionally, that you're looking forward to in the next 12 months? What's something big you're working on that you're most excited about?
Okay, that's a topic. There are a few big things I was looking
Okay,
forward to.
sure. You can share more than one. That's all right. At least one. Let's say.
But I would
Share at least one.
say, I would say last few years as a business has been challenging given COVID and everything. So I would definitely want to bring 2026 business back on its track and really focus on and getting, people focused on business back on its track to what it used to be. Of course, all businesses have challenged over the last 3-4 years. There are very few businesses that have done well unless you're in the AI space and everything.
Yeah, it's really only the AI. Or if you're making the chips for AI, you're doing
Or if
pretty
you
well.
invested in silver.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But no, actually, which is something that we're both part of, EO. I'm very looking forward to a very good year with EO Greater Bay Area.
Yeah, this is Entrepreneurs Organization,
Yeah,
for anyone who doesn't know. So Entrepreneurs Organization been around for, I think, what, 30, 40 years? Something like
50
that.
years, 30 years plus, 20,000 members globally. We got the new Hong Kong chapter, Greater Bay Area, Meadow set up last year. We're close to 40 members. We've had some great experiences for the members. We've got some great speakers coming in and planned for this year.
Yeah, and you're going to be taking over as president in July, so that's a big role.
Yeah, so I'll be taking on as president as July. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
And I look forward to that. I think that's going to be a big part of my life this year. So and work. I would say those two would be my key focus areas.
Sounds good. Well, look, thank you so much for your time and for joining us today. We tried a few interesting whiskeys. I think from summarizing a little bit kind of what we saw across these whiskeys, which are very unique and very different. I think the Arran showed us a different style. The Ichiro malt was really an example on how to do marketing well, right? And I think they really killed it from that and that scarcity side. I think the Glendronach is maybe a bit more what we're seeing in the Scotch industry, more of the non-age statements. And then we ended with a 40-year-old blend, kind of taking us back to some of I think classic style Edrington, Macallan, sherry style. And thank you so much for sharing your learnings. I learned a lot, even though I've known you for so long. It was actually really great to learn a lot more about the luxury industry, recruitment, how things are going, from both the candidate's point of view and from the company's point of view. And I think there's a lot changing, it sounds like. So I think that's my kind of key takeaway. Companies are struggling or trying to figure out how to create the right culture, and candidates are switching, maybe not switching, but seem to care more about just money and title, but also lifestyle and other things, and how that is going to work together is going to be a big part of, let's say, the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years, right? And how that works.
Yeah, and I think it's true, right? I think the dynamics in the market are shifting. I think the world economy, the industry, like, if you go back, our father's grandfather's generation was the manufacturing age, right?
Right.
Everything was about manufacturing. Then it became about consumer tech. And now the younger generation is about AI. What's next?
Yeah.
Now people are moving beyond AI. Now there are people already planning 10 years from now, what's next,
Yeah.
right? So there's this whole shift in the economy, right? By the time 10 years from now, we may not know what it could be, like robotic cars flying all over. You never know.
Yeah, well, hopefully there'll still be whiskey we could drink. That's all I really care about. And hopefully you'll share more of your Japanese stash with me. So cheers, Solange.
Cheers, Son. Thank you so much. It was amazing being here. And thank you for the lovely whiskeys.
So a little tradition we have over here is just sign your name on the glass and we'll add it to our collection. Hey guys, Rickesh here, the Whiskey Chief. Firstly, thanks so much for watching this episode. It really means a lot to us. If you can, like and subscribe below. It just really helps us to keep bringing you the best whiskeys in the world. Solange, and I'll talk to you soon.